Hello, dear viewer. Today, we delve into a topic that merits serious consideration. Why school might actually make you dumber. I must preface this discussion by acknowledging the importance of education, but it's critical to examine certain aspects of school that might actually hinder intelligence instead of improving it. So, let's dive into some facts. And I should probably point out, there are an almost infinite number of ways that we can provide education to young people, but we've chosen a kind of methodology which I don't think really benefits many people these days. Let's start out by looking at sitting, for example. Sitting is seemingly mundane, but actually carries profound implications. According to Yale Medicine, prolonged sedentary behaviour, like sitting, is linked with an absolute ton of health issues like diabetes, heart problems, weight gain, depression, dementia, and even multiple cancers. It's alarming how something as innocuous as sitting down can impact our overall health. Now, I just have to say that you don't have to sit down to learn something. You could be following a teacher around, for example, as he or she explains something. You could, for example, be standing up at a desk. You could have the option of sitting or standing, and these aren't particularly difficult. You could have, for example, in a classroom, a situation where students who wanted to stand up could be at the back of the classroom, and students who wanted to sit down could be at the front. And of course, you could always have desks which can go up and down. And, you could set these at the beginning of the class, and students would just kind of probably get used to them. So there's all these options. And I think walking around is actually an incredibly effective way of learning as well. So, recent research on 1.2 million Swedish military personnel, and I could have used any number of researchers here, revealed an intriguing correlation between fitness and intelligence. Exercise goes beyond physical benefits. It enhances attention control, processing speed, working memory capacity, and task switching abilities. Simply put, an active body supports an agile mind. It really does seem that the more exercise you do, the more intelligent you become. Not only does it wake your brain up, and you can actually measure this with a massive increase in activity, it also improves the density of the brain. Research has actually found that literally walking and exercise make you more intelligent. So why are we telling kids to sit down and to shut up all day in these horrible schools? I've honestly never really gotten over school. I mean, I didn't personally enjoy the process. I much preferred college and university, to be fair. But I think there's a lot of choices that we're making which really damage the development of kids. So a disconcerting reality emerges from the reports of primary school teachers worldwide. Approximately 40% of children receive less than 30 minutes play per day on a typical school day. In the UK, only 51% of primary classes enjoyed the recommended 60 minutes of play, with 16% having less than 30 minutes. Some schools even restrict playtime due to fears of conflict. This deprivation actually costs children intelligence and opportunities. I honestly can't imagine anything worse to do to a child than to make it sit still in a chair and to be quiet while somebody whitters on about something but the kid probably isn't going to remember anyway in a month or two. And I think there are so many better ways of learning. And I also think a lot of school, especially with stuff related to information gathering, is kind of unnecessary in the modern world where we have access to basically the entire library of human, what would you say, information, basically in your pocket at all times. And I think there's a lot more that we could do in terms of social development and trying to help people develop their negotiating skills or their personality or their independence or, the skills that are actually valuable in the workplace, as opposed to just trying to get kids to learn, I don't know, whatever it just happens to be. Play is far from frivolous. It nurtures cognitive, physical, social, and emotional well-being. Through play, children learn about the world, themselves, and develop vital skills like confidence, essential for future work, study, and relationships. Denying children ample playtime jeopardizes their ability to work. And here's the funny thing, if you look at people from, say, 50 or 100 years ago, they are unbelievably verbally intelligent and erudite, and you can have a great conversation with them. But you have a conversation with a lot of young people nowadays, and they've barely interacted with humans. They've spent a lot of time in front of a computer, in front of a phone or a game, and they've gone to a classroom where they basically sit still and don't really interact with many other people. And some of these schools, like I say, barely provide any kind of adequate playtime. This is a kind of dumbing down of children, and it literally destroys intelligence. We even saw over the lockdown period that because kids were behind masks and because kids were sort of forced to stay home, or kids were not allowed to really interact with other kids, we saw a massive intelligence loss across the board, which they are going to really struggle to recover from, and many of them probably never will. And a lot of this is just completely built into the system. They don't really care about the kids' welfare, and if they did, they would say, well, 60 minutes isn't really enough. I mean, 2 hours a day, maybe an hour play in the morning and an hour play at later in the afternoon. That might sound like a lot, but I actually noticed that in Denmark, for example, kids play more, but they also study a lot more, and they study more subject areas too, because there is so much stuff which people can study which isn't actually taught in schools. For example, I think sign language and first aid should be mandatory, for example. And I just think that playtime absolutely destroys their physical abilities. More than half of kids nowadays are overweight, and a lot of this is just down to lack of physical exercise. But can you blame the kids? Well, no. Not if you only let them out for a few minutes every day. I mean, the kids are probably going to take 20 minutes just to get going, and I've heard of some schools being so bad that they only let kids out for 14 minutes a day. And the theory is that this helps avoid conflict. They think if the kids are out, they might start fighting each other. And even if the kids do fight each other, that's pretty bad. Yeah, but it's because they are suffering in a hostile environment. It's also terrible that boys are dropping out of school like mad. We have seen basically around 2/3 of people who are going to university are women, and I think the reason is they've made the school environment so hostile to boys. Boys' way of learning, physical activity, stuff like competition. Boys and girls actually thrive on it, and yet they've taken all of this away to a large extent in many schools because they think that any kind of conflict is bad, and they absolutely give a higher priority to the way that girls learn as opposed to the way that boys learn. They really don't care about boys. Could this be years and years and years of feminism? Education? Possibly. I mean, I certainly learned feminism from different subjects. I did a lot of different subjects, but I learned it on 5 different occasions. Did I learn anything about men? Well, no. Another thing I never learned about was any kind of relationships. We had sex education, but we never had relationship education. And again, at the same time, we've seen a massive decline in people having relationships, in getting married. In fact, half of girls aged 30 now don't have any kids, and that's unprecedented in history in the UK, by the way. So we are so messed up in so many ways. Like I say, in America, I believe 60% of the population are overweight, and we just need to change the way that we're educating kids because it is not benefiting them. The sedentary lifestyle that we are instilling in kids causes massive numbers of health problems. It slows brain development. It's absolutely appalling. But let's talk about another aspect of schooling, which I don't like, and that is the top-down authoritarian approach. So recently, a few videos went viral of teachers basically teaching certain subjects as if they are gospel. Now, in a sane school, you would teach children in a way that says, this is what some people believe, this is what other people believe, make up your own minds, we're going to give you information for both sides and perhaps other perspectives as well, and because we trust you to be independent, thinking, intelligent beings, we're going to allow you to make up your own mind about certain things. Whereas the approach seems to be, the teacher has the information, the student doesn't, so the student must subordinate. They must be basically broken down and destroyed to accept the teacher's information. This is a sort of top-down process where the teacher teaches and the student learns. But what does the student actually learn? And when the student leaves the school, is there going to be a great teacher telling them what to do? No, they are going to be independent entities having to make decisions for themselves. But they've never had those kind of skills encouraged in school. They've just literally been a drone, told what to think, told what to do, and if they deviate, they'll get punished. And I'm not saying this happens all the time. I had some very good teachers who taught a lot of stuff that maybe they don't necessarily even believe in, but they taught it so that students could make better decisions about what they want to believe, for example. And the teachers were pretty respectful a lot of the time of a lot of different ideas. But again, it just seems like ideology is taught above critical thinking skills, and I think that's a real shame. In fact, I would even go so far as to say the most important thing you can learn from school is to be able to have independent thoughts and ideas. There's a school, and I believe they're in New York, and I heard about the school. They seem to be doing really good work where students form little groups of 5 pupils, and they're all different ages, and they're all responsible for helping each other and trying to teach each other, basically. And it seems like a much better method because it fosters a kind of caringness. It also fosters a sort of ability to teach, to actually think about and pass knowledge along, as opposed to just being a reciprocal for knowledge. And I think it makes far more independent sort of thinking entities, as opposed to entities which have been trained to work in a warehouse or in a factory, when there really aren't that many warehouse or factory jobs. And let's face it, they're not always the most desirable jobs anyway. The whole point, I think, of school should focus on building an individual who is robust, creative, and happy and confident, who have control over their bodies. For example, if you don't get enough playtime, you can be almost permanently stuck in a lesser state of development. Let's say you'll probably never play sports or team games. You might struggle in the workplace if you don't have those skills that you learn from playtime. Education should be a beacon of intellectual freedom, nurturing independent thinkers and fostering creativity, encouraging students to question, challenge, and develop their own ideas. Embracing diversity of thought enriches everyone, and the learning experience should prepare students for the complex world that exists today, and not the world of 1900, where you would get people just working in a factory their whole lives who would listen to the bell to know when they can eat their food or go to the toilet. Anyway, in conclusion, dear listener, we must recognise the multifaceted importance of schooling on young minds. Whilst education serves as a pillar of societal progress, we must address aspects that hinder intellectual growth and well-being. I think we need to redesign schools really from the beginning to say, how can we make students who are happy and healthy and independent thinkers and who are capable of operating in the world as individual beings as opposed to workers or drones. because I think there are some really good schools out there doing some great stuff, but I also think there are way too many schools that really try to sublimate students instead of trying to enhance their lives. Anyway guys, that's my rant about schooling over. Let me know what you think in the comments. What did you think about this video? I will speak to you guys soon, and goodbye.